lovers, and welcome to the Liberty Mike podcast, broadcasting from an undisclosed location in the heart of Dixie. I am Michael, and I am here with Liberty Larry.
How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No cold complaints today? I really expected some cold complaints today.
It's freezing out there. What are you talking about?
It's such a nice looking day. It's weird how it works here, because in the winter on the all right, so the weather pattern this time of year is warm, rain, cold.
Yeah.
So it warms up, it rains, then it gets cold.
Yeah.
And so the cold days are beautiful days. Like you look outside and you're like, man, what a lovely day this is. And then you walk out and you're like, oh my God,
And
what's
then
that wind?
Then the cold attacks you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and it's particular, dude. It was blowing my car all over the road on the way here.
Yeah.
Like it is windy.
It is very, very windy. I enjoy driving in that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You enjoy not being able to control the car.
I like fighting against something while I'm driving. You know?
All right.
It creates a challenge to stay on the road, and I like a challenge.
You like a challenge.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Like the bigger and boxier your car, the better. You should have seen it when I worked on the ambulance, man.
Oh, I bet. Oh man, years ago we got me and my brother-in-law got hung in the storm in a what's the big trucks? U-Haul truck.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, dude. Like I thought it was gonna flip that U-Haul truck. Like it was that bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get where you're coming from. Like wind can really mess with a vehicle like that.
Mm-hmm. Those big vans that we used to drive, the ambulance.
Yeah.
They're all really top heavy to start with.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, fun times.
Oh yeah.
That was in Atlanta too.
Yeah.
Driving lights and siren in Atlanta is a very different Atlanta driving experience.
Oh, I can imagine. People get out of your way, right? Or into it. Yeah, right.
A lot of times, you have to, man, that was when I moved up there and I took that job as an EMT, like that was the best job I could possibly have moving to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Because I had to learn my way around that city. Because there's a whole bunch of places that particular times a day, nobody's moving out of your way because there's nowhere to move.
Yeah, they're just stuck. Yeah.
And so you have to find alternative routes everywhere if you plan to get there.
Yeah.
And so I knew my way through all these like twisting and turning through these little residential areas and like crossing a busy street to another residential area to get places that I wanted to go. Yeah. It was interesting.
A few more years, this area will be that way.
Yeah, it's starting to feel that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's an over-exaggeration, but it's getting bad.
Yeah.
And it's just growing and growing and growing.
Well, I think it's funny. I mean, I saw it yesterday. I went to dinner at like 5:15. Like I had an early dinner reservation. And
I was going to say, you're really becoming an old man. Dinner at 5:15.
Well, I mean, like if you're gonna have a good dinner, you take your time. We didn't leave the restaurant till 7:30 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
But at any rate, the point I was gonna make is like at the end of the county road here, all those years ago they put in that roundabout to relieve traffic problems at the light.
Oh yeah.
And now a light would be so much better there.
It really would be. I was amazed. I think I told you, it may have been last week I came through there, and I was on the side that was moving, and the other side was backed all the way up, miles and miles and miles.
Yeah.
It makes like I say, I don't know what the answer is. The answer is stop letting all these folks in, I think. But
we're gonna have to shut our borders.
We have to close our Baldwin County borders.
Build the wall.
Yeah. Hey, I support it, man. Something's got to happen.
Oh no!
All this farmland's turning into subdivisions.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, you get off the beaten path. It's really.
Yeah, where is that at?
I mean, it's still like between your house and my house.
There's a lot of room for development.
Yeah,
and
well,
they're developing it.
Well, in parts of it, they're developing it, but there's a lot of sections that are still just giant tracts of farmland.
Yeah, it's disappearing every year, though.
Yeah, well, that's the way of things. We don't need so many farms. Farms are so much more productive than they used to be.
Who needs food, right?
Well, no. I mean, you're producing a lot more food on a lot less area now because of technological advances.
Okay.
I mean, that's one of the big issues, talk about cutting funding for this, that, and the other. That's one of the big issues with farm subsidies is that, like, take away the farm subsidies and we won't have a whole bunch of useless farms that are out there growing nothing and getting paid for it.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to know somebody who had some farmland in middle of nowhere, middle Alabama, who would check the schedules every year to see what was being subsidized, like what you would get paid not to grow.
Yeah.
And that's what he would announce was being grown in his fields.
Yeah. Sounds like a good business to be in.
Exactly. He didn't even have to maintain the farms because everything that he grew was something that you got paid not to grow every year.
Yeah.
So he had this whole big piece of property that the government was paying for, essentially.
Nice.
Yeah. Except that we're paying for it, actually.
That's good money if you can get it.
Yeah. And if you took away the farm subsidies, what would happen is that, a whole bunch of farmers would have to sell off.
Yeah. Or start producing crops.
Or start producing crops.
Yeah.
And so you would end up with less farmland, but it would be more productive farmland.
Yeah. You think RFK is going to mess with any of that?
I hope so. I don't know. I think he's more concerned with what's going into the food than how the food's being produced.
And I think you're right about that, but there's some things to be concerned about with how it's produced too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I would like to see him. I think this is one of the biggest wastes in this country, actually, is farm subsidies. Nobody talks about big agriculture, but it's a thing.
Oh, yeah, big ag is.
Also, those farm subsidies, they make it easier for big farms to just to dominate and pushes like small family farms out of business. In fact, regulations generally do that.
Yeah.
There was the famous interstate commerce clause Supreme Court decision. I think it was in the 30s, maybe, and I can't remember the name of the court case because I don't remember those. I'm bad with names.
Yeah.
And dates, which is why I can't remember when exactly this happened.
It was approximately this time period.
Yeah, it was in the progressive era. It was when they were, it was during the New Deal time periods, and they were making all these new rules about production. And that's when a lot of this farm subsidy stuff started anyway.
Yeah.
In order to keep prices up, the government would use taxpayer money to buy up product and destroy it to keep prices up for everything else. Limit the supply. They still do this. This is still what happens.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was this case where there was a limitation placed on how much a particular, any farm could produce. I think it's based on the land area or whatever, but whatever the rule was, it limited the production of a particular farm.
Yeah.
Of any particular farm. And so this guy had a case brought against him by the government, and he appealed it up to the Supreme Court because he was producing the grain only to feed his own. Like, he wasn't selling it off of his farm.
Yeah, he was using it to feed his own cattle and stuff like
feed
that.
his own
I've heard of this
livestock.
case. I know which one you're talking about. I don't know the name of it either, but I've heard of this.
Yeah. I was reading about it recently in a book that I just finished about how government has no authority. Anyway. But, so he appealed it up to the Supreme Court, and they just kind of like pigeonholed this idea about how because he was producing so much, even though it wasn't leaving his farm, it meant that he wasn't buying from other people, which affected prices, which affected everybody. It was just
basically the argument was, since he wasn't buying it from the market and was producing it himself, he was still affecting the price in the market.
Yeah, and therefore the government had a say over it because of the interstate commerce clause.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And of course, if they hadn't had the interstate commerce clause, they would have applied some other BS.
Yeah, they would have found some other way to get in that, to regulate this.
Yeah. But if RFKJ got rid of all the subsidies, that would be incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that it would improve our farming economy, and it would free up a bunch of farmland for development.
Yay! More traffic.
Yeah.
All I hear when you say that is more traffic.
It also frees up land that you can widen lanes.
Maybe. You want to do some eminent domain and
No.
start just running roads everywhere? Because that's really what you need. Like, more lanes doesn't really fix the problem. You end up like Atlanta, where it's just like 6 lanes or whatever.
Yeah.
You need more roads.
Well, having lived there, one of the biggest problems in Atlanta is that they're always working on those roads.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's always that, too.
Constant construction, which is also handled by the city and incredibly inefficient. And
imagine that.
Yeah.
You mean city government's not productive?
I mean, it's a meme, but we've all driven by those county construction crews where there's one guy down in a hole and 6 guys standing around watching him. I mean, like, it's a joke, but we've all seen it.
But it's real though. Like it's a joke because it's funny. It's not a joke because it's not true.
Yeah, it's funny because it's true.
Yeah, exactly. The meme I saw this week was, so the top picture is what you just described, like 6 guys watching one guy dig a hole, but then it's like before Doge and after Doge, and it's just one guy digging the hole.
Yeah, let's hope.
So, yeah, well, they're doing something, man. I will say this about the Doge thing. I didn't have my hopes very high in the beginning during the campaign when they were talking about it. I was like, this is going to be like a little thing. It's not going to be nothing. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to be, because you're used to that. Yeah. Like, I mean, people campaign on stuff and then they don't follow through, or it's not as good as it's supposed to be, the whole 9 yards. And we're still early in this. We'll see where it goes. But it's already went way further than I would have guessed.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, the next administration will just restore it to the way it was.
I'm sure, but
it might take some time, though.
But it's
hard to build up just like that fast.
Well, what's so wild about it, though, and what I think libertarians need to appreciate is that this is on the forefront now. I mean, you had Ron Paul, you had the Tea Party movements, you've had all of these anti-tax, like reduce government movements, and none of them have done anything.
Yeah, I
mean, none of them got anywhere. Love Ron Paul to death. It didn't work, man. It just it never happened. But the public is behind this in a way I've never seen. Even through the Tea Party, where that it had support, it didn't have support like this. And it's just I was listening to Donald Trump in the press conference the other day, and it's just hilarious listening to it. Like, I mean, it's just wild, the support that's out there for this. And that's important, because that's what it's going to take for this to continue.
Yeah.
Because if support turns, then it's over.
Yeah. Well, what's funny to me is like what I've seen in read primarily in mainstream media, where they just don't seem to understand that this is what people wanted.
Yeah, well, and it's the same way on the other media, the video media, like the news and whatnot. Like it's just it's crazy that they can't read the room.
Yeah,
like it's just like this. Trump's doing this; it's automatically bad. We have to be against it. And so you have people out there hollering and screaming in favor of corruption.
Yeah,
it's just like it's wild.
Well, and I saw one. I saw a clip from, I don't know, some mainstream media outlet. Where the person was going on about how, now we're not going to have daycare for kids because they're cutting USAID money. And I said, what? That's a foreign aid program. They're not funding preschools in the U.S. What are you talking about? Yeah. I don't know. It's like they don't even know it. It's funny to see people just get up in arms at the idea that you might cut government spending.
Yeah, which is really all it is. Like, is just the idea. I mean, they haven't really done anything. I mean, they've done some. I mean, they have a little ticker on the debt clock now. So I mean, they've done something.
Although it does seem that in the last week, the big story on Elon Musk was baby mama drama.
I keep seeing stuff about that, but honestly, I haven't even read anything into it, because to me, that's just an aside. Like, I don't care about that.
It is, but that's the
aside right
focus.
now.
Yeah. That's the distraction, right?
Yeah.
And that one's kind of funny, actually, too, if you pay any attention to it, because it's funny to see right-wing conservatives defending the unwed man with 13 children or whatever.
Yeah.
Like if it's some NFL running back star, like he's a terrible person, but somehow since it's Elon Musk and he seems to be on your side, it's a good thing. He's what's his name? The crazy screaming guy, Seed Man.
Oh crap. Alex Jones.
Alex Jones was like, he's promoting family values, growing a big family like he should be. What are you talking about, man? Yeah. That's not a big family. This is a whole bunch of random kids.
Well, hey, at least he can support those kids.
Well, there's something to be said for that. But it's not just money that raises a kid. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fair. No, that's fair.
Like,
you didn't see him at the press conference where he had the kid on his shoulders? Well, yeah. Come on, he's doing a good job. He's dead.
That was one of them.
One of them. I'm sure he alternates them out.
Maybe he does. It's not this. The idea of the right-wing conservative family value thing is that you have a 2-parent households, though.
Yeah, well,
that's the family values that they've been
promoting
up until now. Not just have a bunch of kids.
It does seem to be the process that's worked.
Yeah,
over time.
Yeah, over a couple million years.
Yeah, right.
Well, so I don't know. I'm interested to see how far these cuts go. The other big, we may as well talk about some of the Ukraine stuff. Although Ukraine's all right. So the Trump administration is talking to the Putin administration.
Yeah,
everybody should be cheering about this.
Yeah, we played the clips on the last show of what was the guy?
We played Hegseth.
Yeah.
Talking about the Ukraine's got to give up on Crimea and so forth.
Yeah, I mean that was so we did play those. That's such a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And then now to have Trump talking to Putin, like this is all really good things.
Yeah, it was Rubio and Lavrov, and then it was Trump and Putin. Yeah. There's now they're not really talking about Ukraine at this point, but they've normalized diplomatic relations. This is a huge thing.
Yeah.
You got to remember that since the end of the last Trump, actually, I guess it's really since the end of the Obama administration, hadn't it been? That U.S. closed all its embassies in Russia and Russia closed all its embassies here. Remember, right at the end of the Obama administration, he threw out a whole bunch of diplomats from Russia.
I forgot about that. That was a long time ago.
Okay, so we haven't really had normal relations, diplomatic relations with Russia since then.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there was the whole Russiagate BS and the original Trump administration, and Biden and Blinken wouldn't talk to anybody after the war began, and so on. And of course, the war began because they wouldn't talk.
Exactly.
So restoring normal diplomatic relations with embassies opening up and diplomats and ambassadors in these other countries. It can't be understated how important that is.
Absolutely.
Especially between the two biggest nuclear powers in the world.
Right.
They really should talk to each other.
You would think.
The world is a safer place if Russia and the United States are talking to each other.
Yeah.
But, Trump made a comment. We'll get to Zelensky's issues in a moment. But
absolutely.
Trump made a comment about, talking with China and talking with Russia, and, maybe we can come to some deal where we can all reduce our defense spending by half.
I saw that. And it sounded like they were both on board with it.
Yeah.
From what I read. Yeah.
And it's,
I mean, they didn't, I say they were open to it. They didn't dismiss it out of hand.
Yeah. And just for people's perspective, the United States is like between 40 and 50% of the military spending for the entire world.
Yeah.
All right. The U.S. spends about 5 times as much on its military as China.
Yeah.
That has 4 times as many people as us.
Yeah.
And about 10 times as much as Russia, even while Russia's at war.
Yeah, they're at war right now.
So,
of course, we're always at war, so there's that.
That's true. So it's a significant. This is one of the biggest drains on resources in the United States is defense spending.
Yeah, right.
That's a euphemism for you.
Should call it offensive.
Yeah. Well,
spending.
It used to be the War Department.
War Department, yeah.
And that's more accurate than after they changed it to Defense Department.
Yeah.
But reducing defense spending by half would be huge, putting resources back into a market economy in this country.
Yeah.
Building wealth for everybody instead of draining the wealth.
So you think Doge is gonna go to the Pentagon?
Oh gosh,
Audit the Pentagon?
I hope so.
I mean, they're talking about it.
I know that's hard.
Yeah.
To do.
Yeah.
Though, and you'll just be stonewalled and stonewalled and stonewalled.
Yeah.
But in the end, Trump is the man in charge of all that.
Exactly. Like he has the authority.
But the problem is that the people inside, they understand it. The people coming from the outside don't understand it. The people from the inside know how to hide stuff.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. Mm-hmm. And it's the same, but it's the same in all of these agencies. I mean,
the Pentagon is probably better able to hide stuff.
I was going to say, I mean, they're probably more used to hiding stuff.
Yeah.
Is what I would think.
Yeah. But I would love to see that done. And, I would really like to start seeing some trilateral, I guess it would be multilateral weapons restrictions.
Yeah. Well, didn't Trump exit a bunch of those agreements, though?
Yeah, he did.
In his first term?
He did. A lot of pressure, though, because he was a Russian spy then, though, too.
That was the talking point at the time.
So, yeah, he exited a bunch. Biden exited the last of them. Yeah. George W. Bush started getting rid of all those nuclear treaties.
Yeah. So this is kind of more just a reset then.
Yeah. But, one of Trump's big things is that he wanted, part of the reason he was resistant to just signing back onto these things is because China wasn't a part of them.
Okay.
He's like, these are just agreements between us and Russia, and China doesn't play any part in this, and they should need to be a part of it. And so I don't want to go back into it unless China's a part of it. And
but doesn't China have like a tiny portion as far as nukes is concerned, like number of nukes? They
probably, I think it's more now because they've been building up because we've been threatening them.
Yeah.
For a while, but like the last numbers I heard were between 300 and 400. I bet it's closer to 600 now.
Yeah.
But even that is far fewer than the U.S. or Russia have. Like just reducing the numbers down to where China is
would be massive.
Yeah. So, I'd like to see some of that stuff happen. I'm not holding my breath on that.
Yeah.
But that's something. And then as for Ukraine, man, Zelensky. He's just out in the cold.
Yeah.
And that's where he should be, frankly.
Yeah. So I'm understanding correctly that he was, because I saw him something where they were interviewing him or something, and that he just wasn't invited to the talks.
Yeah.
They just completely left him out.
They didn't need him.
Well, and the truth is they don't. Mm-hmm. This is a proxy war between us and Russia.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
We can dictate. Okay, he's going to have to. I heard some news person saying, what do they expect? They expect to, just make a deal and Zelensky will have to abide by it. And I'm like, yeah, because that's going to happen one way or another.
Or whoever's the president, because technically, Zelensky is.
That's fine. Leaving that aside, though, but either way, that's how it ends.
Well, yeah.
No matter what, that's how it ends. Either the U.S. dictates the terms that they agreed to with Russia, or Russia enforces the terms that it can enforce by force.
Yeah.
Either way, Ukraine's lost this war.
Yeah.
They don't have any say in it at this point.
No.
It may as well be an agreement between the U.S. and Russia because those are the primary actors.
Yeah.
And we can leave Europe out too. And and Europe's raising Cain as well. About
we're not going to keep spending our money, or the U.S. isn't going to keep spending its money on this.
Yeah, but Europe wants to maintain the war, and I would say if I was Trump, like, hey, if you want to pay for it, go right ahead.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done. And the truth is that Europe can't pay for it.
No, of course not.
They're not prepared to support an armed forces. Now, the unfortunate thing, this could backfire in the long run, because the unfortunate thing is because Europe is seeing that the U.S. may not be its protector going forward, it could accelerate European militarism.
Yeah.
And the truth is, the history of Europe is a history of war.
Yeah.
This is a fluke this time since World War II.
Yeah.
Where there haven't been any major wars on the European continent. Because prior to that, they were constantly at war with each other. Yeah. Constantly at war with each other.
Throughout all of history.
Throughout all of history.
Yeah.
And they seem to like it.
Yeah.
And it seems that way right now. It's like they want a war on their continent.
Yeah.
I don't understand why.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the case. They want a war on their continent.
Yeah.
And, let them do it on their own.
Yeah, right.
If they want to do that. But it's not good for us if there's a big war in Europe.
Yeah.
And the U.S. pulling out of things may accelerate that and may step up conflict between Russia and the rest of Europe.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't, but that's certainly a possibility.
Yeah. Well, it has to be. Yeah.
But, Germany can't even really do it. Like, Germany needs Russian energy.
Yeah.
It would be ridiculous for Germany. The smart thing for Europe is to make peace with Russia.
Yeah.
It's better for all of Europe if they make peace with Russia. In every conceivable way,
Yeah.
It's better for Europe if they make peace with Russia. But if they're intent on war, then the U.S. withdrawing assistance could accelerate that.
Yeah.
So there's a downer for you. But
well,
but I can see that happening, and it is a concern.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we should get involved and stay involved just so that we can prevent them from more quickly becoming more militaristic.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
No.
That's some war is peace BS right there.
Right. Peace through strength.
Yeah. Well, same difference, right?
Exactly.
Freedom is slavery.
Yeah.
And ignorance is bliss. No, that's not the right thing. Ignorance is strength.
Oh, I don't know.
I think that's the line from 1984.
So
war,
is it?
War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength, I think.
Sounds right.
Oh. It's been a year or so since I read that.
Yeah.
I don't know. What else?
I don't know. What else?
So this story. All right. So I have this story. It kind of stood out to me.
All right.
It's funny to me in a very dark way.
Yeah.
All right.
Those are my favorite type of stories.
Okay. So there was a shooting, I guess it was last weekend in Miami.
Okay.
At Miami Beach. And here's the story. A Jewish Israeli American saw two Palestinians on a beach in Miami.
Yeah.
And unloaded on them, fired 17 rounds at them, and then when the police arrived, he proudly declared that he had seen two Palestinians and he killed them.
Okay.
He's very happy about this.
Yeah.
Jewish Israeli American.
Yeah.
However, he didn't kill them.
Yeah.
And they weren't Palestinians. In fact, they were Arab Jews.
Wow. Really?
Yes.
How did I not hear about this?
Because we can't tell that kind of story.
Apparently not, because this is all news to me.
Yeah.
It seems like that's something I would have picked up on.
But this happened, yes. A Jewish Israeli American saw two Palestinians and killed them, except that he didn't kill them and they weren't Palestinians. In fact, they were Jews. And then after the attack, the Jews that were attacked, these Arab Jews, they took to social media claiming that they had just been victims of anti-Semitic crime, and they finished their post with "Death to Arabs." Except they're Arab. They're just Jewish Arabs.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and they
because
weren't-
all the Palestinians are Christian and Muslim Arabs in that area.
Yeah. This just goes to the whole collectivism thing is garbage. Like, I mean, that's what I'm taking away from this story is just it's just it doesn't work.
Yeah, the level of racial hatred there is kind of inconceivable.
Yeah. I don't.
And
Well, I'm glad
you know,
everybody was all right.
I mean, I don't know that they were all right. They just weren't dead.
Well, I'm glad everybody's not dead.
And the
How
other
about
guy
that?
got arrested. He's probably not all right anymore.
Yeah, but he don't deserve to be all right.
Yeah. But I mean, everybody's not all right. Is
Okay.
kind of my point
Well, I guess
there.
maybe I took it a little too
and
far.
none
but-
of them are all right in the head, as far as I can tell.
Wow.
And it's just, this idea. I think part of it is that the idea that Jews are an ethnicity or some kind of real group with a shared culture, and like I don't know what they share at all.
Yeah.
And in this case, it was just like he saw some dark-skinned Jews and assumed that they must be Palestinians, so he shot at them.
That's just wild to me. Yeah, I can't.
And they assumed that he must be Palestinian because he shot at them.
Yeah.
But he is also a Jew. And
Assumptions all the way around.
yeah, and it's ridiculous anyway. But I mean, to think, this is a created state and a created ethnicity and a created culture, and it's all very new, and it doesn't actually work because the Arab Jews that lived in the area when the state of Israel was created, and the Arab Jews and Persian Jews that came out of Iran or Iraq or Syria or other places in the Middle East that moved to Israel after the Jewish state was created.
Yeah.
It's not like they shared a culture or a language or the same practices in their religion even as each other, or especially as the Polish and German and French and Russian Jews that moved down into the state as well. Like the idea that this is some kind of group, like an actual identifiable group, is a fallacy.
Yeah.
And it's just proven with events like this.
Yeah.
They can't even recognize each other.
Yeah. It's just wild.
It's like saying that Americans are some identifiable group. Well, the truth is that you could throw a bunch of people together and they may or may not be American. You can't really tell.
Well,
Unless they're wearing MAGA hats.
well, I was going to say, from my understanding, is Americans are a lot larger than people of other countries at this point.
That's actually, yes. You can generally identify an American when you're walking through Europe.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've heard. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just saying.
No, from experience. Like, if you see fat people while you're walking around in almost any other country, 9 times out of 10, it's an American.
They're American. Yeah. So.
But hopefully RFKJ will fix that.
We're working on that
Yeah,
one, guys.
We're putting a lot on RFKJ's shoulders, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
But I said at the beginning that I thought that was the most important appointment.
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Tulsi is important, but and Kash Patel was just confirmed
Today, right?
Yeah,
Like right before we recorded, right?
Yeah. So he's now the FBI director. We'll see what comes of that.
I mean, it looks like Trump's pretty well gotten what he's wanted as far as these appointments go.
Yeah.
I mean, the only one that he hadn't really gotten, I think, was the one that dropped out. What was his name?
Gates.
Gates, yeah.
Yeah. But it's Pam Bondi instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were really quick to switch that, so I kind of think that was always that they were prepared.
Now, I'm not a huge fan of her. We did play the clip where she was talking about free speech and how there were limitations and so forth, right?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
I think we played the clip where she was talking about how, kids on college campuses that were protesting in favor of the Palestinians.
We did play that. Yeah.
Should be jailed or deported or, et cetera, that there should be consequences for having that opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. We can play some Rubio clips, but I don't want to play Rubio clips particularly.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about a couple of things that we might have to play those clips, huh?
I don't know.
I don't want to play Rubio clips. I'd rather wrap up early than play Rubio.
You hate him that much, right?
I don't hate him that much, actually. Mm-hmm. I think, honestly, he seems to have shifted in some positive ways from the Rubio I've known.
Well, and I think that's largely because the Republican Party has shifted.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's just kind of going where the wind blows him.
Well, I think actually that he still probably maintains a lot of these neocon ideas about imperialism and so forth. And that would have gone with some of the clips that we were going to play.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to summarize. You guys can go to his confirmation speech and listen to it if you want. He says some interesting things. The stay in your lane moment was he was talking about how unfettered free trade after the World War II has caused a dissolution of the middle class and a reduction of wealth in America and so forth. And we're like, what free trade?
Yeah, right.
No, free trade would actually improve those things. The problem is that you don't have free trade. You have government restricted trade.
Yeah.
And yes,
leave the economics to people who understand it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But he was talking about how the global world order is no longer. Well, he was saying that other countries are using the global world order system as a weapon against the United States, and I was like, man. The United States uses the global world order like a cudgel against everybody else.
Yeah.
And always has, because we've been that most powerful nation.
I was going to say, we run this thing. Like, there's no question who's in charge around the world.
Yeah.
It's always us.
The problem is that it's not working as effectively for us to get our own way everywhere as it used to.
Yeah.
So it's not that other countries are using it as a weapon against us. It's just become a less effective weapon for us.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the imperialist part is he was saying what we need to do is we need to, have a foreign policy where we're concerned only about our own national interest.
Yeah.
Which honestly I'm not necessarily opposed to, except that I know that when he says that, he means as an excuse to go meddle everywhere in the world to get our way.
I was going to say, yeah. When I hear somebody like Rubio say that, I don't think of like America first, like what Trump means. Like, well, we're going to put our priorities ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
What I hear is we're fixing to go like thump on some countries with our military.
Yeah. We're
Like,
going to make
that's
sure
what
that
I hear.
the leaders that we want are in charge.
Exactly.
And so I obviously have a real serious problem with that. But the other side of that is that he's not actually really announcing a new policy. He's just formalizing the policy that we've been following for decades.
Yeah.
So, but here's what I'll say, though. Is I think that he still holds a lot of those imperialistic neocon beliefs, but he is following Trump's lead.
Yeah.
And Trump's better than Rubio.
Yeah. No question about that.
The bottom line is Trump's better than Rubio on this stuff. And so as long as Rubio is going to try and enact the policies of the president, and this seems to be the biggest difference between his first term and now, is that he had people around him that were trying to undermine him the whole time in his first term, and he seems to have people in place that want to further his agenda the second time around. Of course, they're calling him loyalists in the media like that's a bad thing.
Yeah. I was fixing to say the Trump loyalist because that's the term you keep hearing.
Yeah.
But the truth is
who else do you want?
Yeah, like I say, if I'm president, I want people that are going to do what I tell them to do.
Yes.
Like, I mean, sure, push back, give me your opinion. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with me, and we're going to do things the way I want them. And that's how I run, like I say, my business and stuff. Like, I want people who are going to follow through with what I tell them to do.
Yeah.
Like, I can't have a bunch of people running around with their own opinions doing what the hell they want to do. That don't work.
Right.
So. Right,
exactly. So I think that he's certainly made an improvement with the people around him. And while I don't like Rubio very much, I think as long as he sticks to the program that Trump's pushing, at least for now,
it's good enough.
that's good enough. That's a tremendous improvement over both Rubio and Trump's first term.
Yeah. Right. So,
what else we got? I don't have anything else, so I hope you can come up with something.
I mean, I don't really like. I've been following the Doge stuff, like so. Like my mind's full of all of that. Like the only other thing I've got as far as that is there is talk of I don't want to know if auditing's the right word, but checking Fort Knox to see.
Probably would be an audit.
I guess it would be an audit, but I mean, like literally, Elon Musk floated the idea just like going in there and doing a live stream to let the American people know the gold's there.
Yeah, well, they'd never allow that. That's one of the most secure facilities in the world. There's no way they're letting it live stream from there.
Trump came out today and said it talked about maybe holding a press conference in there or something.
Okay.
And like showing people that the gold is there, basically.
Yeah.
Which is wild to me. And so the most interesting thing I thought about all of this talk is, like, I follow precious metals pretty close. That's kind of a thing that I'm just into. Mm-hmm. But so a lot of the groups I'm in, people's been talking about, well, you know, what if they find out it's not there? What will that do to the price of gold and whatnot? But the thing I found the most interesting is nobody believes it's there.
Yeah.
Like, especially people who follow like that type of thing. Like I was amazed at the amount of comments of people. It's like, it's not there. It's not. Or if it is there, it ain't all there.
Yeah.
But most of them were just like, it's just not there. And they have that many people believe that's just, it says something about the country and the state of things.
Yeah.
That nobody believes that
we can't trust our government with the economy. I'm glad people have finally figured that out.
Well, there definitely seems to be something to that. Or even to trust our government to believe that they say we have all this gold, we actually have it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I would be surprised if it's all there.
Yeah. Oh, I would be shocked.
I mean, I don't think that Fort Knox is an empty facility by any stretch.
Yeah.
But I bet there's been a significant shrink.
Yeah.
Like a kind of shrink that you would get in trouble for at your store.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, some shrink is expected, right, in retail.
Yeah, you expect the percentage. I mean, I've always said 1%. I think the company says 2%. Like, yeah, anything over 2%, those are a real problem.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could like put a percentage on it. But
I don't know what the standard would be for Fort Knox.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the standard should be 0.
Well, exactly. You know?
But I wouldn't at all be surprised if it was like 5 to 10% less than what was claimed.
Well, that's enough to get you fired in the retail industry.
Yeah. So. What does it do in the government managed economy industry?
It probably gets you more funding.
Yeah, probably. Oh, well, we better fill that back up again.
Right?
Let's use that money that we steal from people to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
What happened to what we did? Well, other people got rich off of it, but that's fine.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the other thing with Doge that I think is worth mentioning. And it's the biggest complaint I've heard from libertarians, and I think it's a reasonable one.
Okay.
That if they're finding all this fraud and whatnot, and all of this mismanagement and everything that they're finding, there should be some prosecutions. Like, there should be some accountability here. The idea that we're just gonna like audit these facilities and do these things and then not hold people accountable is wild.
Yeah.
Now,
well,
I think
that's how government works, though.
That is how government works. And I do think there's something to be said about they are letting a lot of people go, so there's that. But there should be, like, if there's true fraud, then those people need to be held to account.
Yeah.
So, and we're early in this. Like, I've heard a lot of people make the argument, well, all of that's coming. This is a process. It takes time. I don't really buy it, but maybe. I mean, I could be open to that.
Yeah. I haven't double checked on this, and honestly, I'm not sure how I would, but I have certainly heard a lot of rumors that there is a tremendous amount of properties being sold in the DC area.
Yeah.
Like, people are getting out.
Yeah.
And I imagine that it's people that have been on the dole, and I mean, that's the suggestion, is that it's people that have been taking advantage of the corruption of government that don't see it as a future anymore.
Yeah, right.
And are getting away. maybe moving overseas where to a non-extradition country or something. Who knows? But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I like where this is going. I like that there seems to be a real attempt to cut costs. This is the advantage of having a businessman and an outsider in the White House.
Yeah. It is crazy to me that we're getting this version of Trump in the second term. Like,
Yeah.
because
If he'd have done this in the first term, he'd have won.
Yeah.
In 2020.
Exactly. So
I think he would anyway.
yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
the only thing that stopped him was COVID, though.
Yeah.
Because he was coasting pre-COVID. It was once all of that came in.
That's true.
That kind of messed him up.
Well, this time
They
can't get rid of him with the bird flu. It's too late. This is a second term.
Right. Yeah. That's the other thing that's on my radar that I'm worried about is them trying to churn up this bird flu thing.
Oh, they're working at it. They're certainly trying to create fear about it. For those that don't follow this stuff, but just listen to the hysterical news media talk about it, one person, as far as I know, just a single person has died from bird flu.
Yeah.
Don't know what other problems that person had. And there is not one recorded case of human-to-human transfer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
not a single one.
Well,
not
they'll
one
even,
case.
They'll even tell you that in the mainstream. Yeah, I watched a report last night where, I mean, they said that. They kept saying there's been no transmission, but we're worried about it, is what they say. Is once it happens, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, that's been the... So I'm waiting because to me, what I took from that report is we're building towards something here. Because because they kept saying that there hasn't been any human to human, but once we have that, we're in trouble. Like that's
but that's not true either. Okay, so there's a bunch of independent populations of the virus and whoever is infected.
Yeah.
And if one of them mutates in such a way that it can be transferred from human to human, it doesn't make all of them mutate in that way.
Yeah.
That's just a single strain now. A single strain going from one person to another person. Now you have two people in the whole world that have a strain that can be transferred from human to human. Yeah. And most likely when that happens, it'll be really inefficient anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it won't be easily transferred to another person, and they don't all move in the same direction. So even if there is a human to human transfer, you still don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah. Well,
the thing you have to worry about is playing with dead birds, because if you're playing with dead birds, you have a problem of a different kind.
Well, there's that.
And so don't play with dead birds.
Yeah. Well, I think we've talked about that on this podcast before. I feel like that keeps coming up.
In fact, don't play with dead animals, period. That's probably
good. Rule of thumb.
Yeah. Or dead people for that matter. Don't play with dead things.
Don't play with dead things. Yeah. So well, I worry. It's definitely something to keep on the radar because they're gonna try to ratchet this up.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Well, I'm gonna go back and talk about the mRNA stuff again for a moment. And I know I've said this over and over again because if that happens, that's what they're going to start to push again. They're going to push an mRNA vaccine for bird flu.
Yeah.
This is a technology with a bright future, I think.
Yeah.
mRNA injections.
Okay.
I'm not going to call it a vaccine.
Yeah.
mRNA therapies.
Okay.
I think is a technology with a bright future. I have been donating money to research in this area for like a decade.
Yeah.
Like I believe in this.
Yeah.
I think that this is probably one of the best possibilities for future cancer treatments. And the elimination, maybe even, of cancer.
Okay.
It's a powerful technology. But because I have been giving to research for this for like a decade,
you kind of understand it.
And reading the literature,
yeah,
I can tell you that it is not ready for prime time.
Yeah.
It's not. And this, I really think that the COVID vaccine, the mRNA COVID vaccines, these pharmaceutical companies said, man, testing is going real slow with this. We would love to have a really large study.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's inject
as
hundreds
many people as we can with it.
Hundreds of millions of people and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, they're getting their study.
Well, sort of, except that they also eliminated the control group over and over and over again in actual studies. So they didn't really get anywhere.
Yeah.
In terms of real scientific advancement.
Yeah.
And of course, they were. I would suggest that they were eliminating control groups to protect themselves from prosecution in the future.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a control group, you don't have a comparison group. You can't say, you can't make any kind of reasonable assertions about whether problems were caused by the injection or not.
Yeah.
But they used the crisis to talk the government into using your money to fund their research, which they do already, but on a huge scale and at great risk to the population.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's your government in action right there.
All right.
And because there weren't, there's Rand Paul.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. No, I think there's one other physician, right? In the Senate or Congress.
I'm trying to think of who it is. I don't know.
I don't remember the name, but I'm pretty sure there's one other physician. So there are probably 2 physicians out of the 535 people.
Yeah.
And
I know where Rand Paul stood on it. So
yeah. And so the pharmaceutical companies could take advantage of the ignorance of these people and the fears that they could whip up. Yeah. And make promises about how safe it was, and flawed studies showing efficacy and safety and so on. I think that it's not hard to manipulate the government in these areas.
Yeah.
Like if it was a question of law, you'd have a harder time because they're mostly attorneys.
They're mostly attorneys. Yeah, you're right.
But in technology and medicine and some of these other areas where most of them don't have any kind of, certainly no expertise and probably not a great deal of knowledge, I think that it's probably easy to get them worked up, afraid, and convinced that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not even attacking them about... I don't think that it was malicious on the part of government.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of malicious on the part of the companies that were producing this.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was malicious on the part of government. I think it's just ignorance.
Yeah. Well, and then you've got Dr. Fauci up there as your guy that you're going to use as your North Star. And
well, that guy's corrupt as they come.
We know the history of him, so...
Yeah. Oh, that's something to mention, actually. So there are a bunch of states' attorneys general that are talking about prosecuting Fauci. Because the pardon protects him from federal crimes, but it doesn't protect him from state prosecutions.
Yeah. Let the states go after him, man. Let the states fight over whose jail he gets to be in.
Yeah, I mean, I would really love to see that happen. That guy deserves some comeuppance.
Yeah. Sure make me feel a lot better.
Yeah. Well, he's old. I mean, it hardly matters now. Like, he already got his 50 years of corruption and taking advantage of his position to enrich himself and the people around him.
I'd still like to see him die in the prison cell.
That's harsh.
Well, it's just saying that I feel like it's earned.
I would like to see some form of justice.
Yeah.
I don't think prison is really it, but because I don't think prison actually delivers justice in any particular way. Yeah. Like, all the victims are still out.
Well, yeah.
And nobody's going to get made whole.
Yeah.
But it would be, I mean, they could try, if they could strip him of his fortune and hand it out to all the victims of his various crimes over the decades. I mean, they might not get a lot, but that would be something at least.
Yeah.
Take care of his ill-gotten gains.
Yeah.
Man, I really despise that man. For so many reasons. But anyway, it's maybe a positive future to see some states prosecute him because he's on the record saying contradictory things. I mean, you can make a clear case that he's a liar, at least.
Yeah, right.
Now, he'll get up there and say, well, the science changes, except that the problem is that he was quoted saying that he knew better when he said some things, but he was trying to get a particular action out of people.
Yeah, he was trying to manipulate the public.
Yeah.
is what he was doing.
I mean, you can't make the claim that I didn't know any better when you admitted later that you were lying intentionally.
Yeah. Right.
No matter what your goal was with the lie.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah. That'll probably get us some clips.
Yeah.
I had to keep track. Maybe I should set a news alert on Fauci.
Yeah.
Now that might not be just have me inundated with a bunch of junk.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm still afraid to do that.
Yeah. Right.
How many emails can I possibly tolerate in a day? So anything else that you want to?
I don't think so.
We actually have a reasonable length podcast this time.
Nice.
Yeah.
I
mean,
guess
because I didn't play Rubio clips.
Oh yeah. I guess there's not as much going on in the world as we thought.
There is. We just, we were concise.
Ah, there you go.
Concise tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. Next week is the end of February, right?
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Today's the 20th.
Yeah. Okay. So it'll be 27th.
Yep.
It'll be next Thursday. All right. Well, we expect to be here next week. I've got some time that I'm going out of town probably in the next 2 months. I haven't
worked it out.
Yeah, I haven't nailed that down yet. So I don't know when that'll be. But we will take a day off. I could maybe work something out. But the idea is that we'll probably be taking a day off sometime in March or April.
Yeah.
Like a planned day off where we tell you in advance, not one of those days off.
Oh, we just don't show up.
Yeah, where something happened.
Yeah.
Might have one of those too. Who knows? The whole thing about that is that it's unpredictable.
Welcome to life.
But we expect to be back here next week. In the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook. You can subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, like and share, comment, subscribe, leave reviews. You can always email me at michael@thelibertymike.com. That's our website, by the way, thelibertymike.com.
We have one of those.
Yeah, everything's there. There's some interesting stuff on that site. You should check it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess that's all the things. So we'll be back next week when we finally get this right. And in the meantime, try to stay free.
Life short, live free.
Ciao.
Later.